Hello everyone. Welcome to today's webinar. Our special guest, Evelien Acun-Roos, will be hosting today's session. She will be talking about the power of facilitation and 5p's of engagement, personal engagement is the topic of today's webinar. Welcome, Evelien. Stage
And
is yours.
I think we are ready to go. So I'm very excited to be here at the webinar from CISArt, live from the Netherlands. And I hope you can all, join us on the Miro, because I have a Miro that I would love for you to participate in, because, well, we are talking about personal engagement. So it would be rather weird if I would be standing here talking for 60 minutes without any engagement. So I hope you can see the Miro link in the chat. It has a password, and I hope I see you on the board in a moment. So let me check that. If I see some movements, just click on the link and enter the password. Should be in the chat.
Yes. I will also share it via comment section. Let me.
Okay. So also in the comment section, you can find the Miro link, so we can have a little bit more interaction. So for a moment, think about for yourself, what is the first word that comes up to you if you think about facilitation? And I'm going to ask you to write that down in the comments, either on YouTube or on LinkedIn. So I'm very curious how this is going to work. But what is the first word that comes up to you when you think about facilitation? Just type it in. And I hope my colleagues will provide me with some answers for that. Or I could look it up myself. Maybe not. Yeah, I see something in the chat. Very well.
That's just dealing some engagement.
Very well. Engagement. We have participation. French word facile, easy. Okay. Thank you. Just give it a few moments. Of course, people are switching between Miro and LinkedIn and YouTube and having to find where is the comment section. Okay, well, for me, facilitation is a lot of things. It's making sure that the people that you work with, that can be in Scrum events, that can be in meetings, that can be in conference talks, that can be in webinars, to make sure that people are engaged. And we do that in several ways. And not just engaged, but also participating and contributing. And I think a good facilitation or good facilitator is able to take those people along with what you're trying to do. And I hope we can achieve that today too. Although it's online, of course, we try to make it as engaging and involving as possible. Who am I? I am your facilitator today. I'm Evelien. I work at Xebia Academy as a trainer, and I facilitate a lot. So I facilitate trainings, conference talks. I wrote some content, and that's kind of the most important about me. You can find me on the internet. So if you want to know more about me, just look me up. But it's not about me today. But I do want to give you some insights on how I got here. I have always been teaching. So I was a dance teacher for over 20 years, teaching small kids how to dance and learning them step by step little short dances. And when I was studying at university, I was also a trainer for Microsoft Office. So explaining PowerPoint and Word to people that were not skilled in that yet. And in my professional life, I have done a lot of Scrum trainings. So that's my profession. I teach Agile and Scrum. And at a certain moment in my career, I thought, well, I want to upskill a little bit. So I went to the training from the back of the room by Sharon Bowman. And this training was really an eye-opener for me. It learned me about how the human brain learns and how you can use that in your trainings or in your workshops, in your endeavors, and how you can use that, online and in person. And when I went to that training, it struck me because it explained how your brain works, how neuroscience is involved. And I thought, well, you can use that not just in teaching endeavors, but also in your Scrum events, on conference talks, on webinars, any spot where you want your people to be engaged more. You can use these principles. And I've worked with them, and I curated them. And finally, I got to, the 5p's of personal engagement. And that is what we'll go through today. So how can you use those 5p's to create an involving and engaging session, both online and in person? So that's me and Rosemarijn Gele. We have done this talk together for multiple times. We crafted these 5p's together. We're also trying to write a book, but well, we don't have so much focus for that. But be on the lookout in the future. Hopefully, we will be able to write a book about these interesting concepts. And these are the 5p's. We have primacy, recency effect, paying attention, participate actively, psychological safety, and play. And a big shout out to Rosemarijn, my partner in crime. So let's start with the first one, primacy, recency effect. Research has shown that your peak time or your prime time of your brain is in the first 20 minutes of a session, of a workshop, of a training. Your brain is open to learn and you are ready to digest information. That's called prime time. But after a certain moment of time, your brain goes a little bit down in attention and you don't pay so much attention anymore. And then it goes up again. So then you can have another prime time, which is not as high as the first one, but it's still higher than your downtime. And if you know that your brain is open in the first 20 minutes of a session, you want to use that in your online sessions or in your workshops or in your trainings. And how can you use that? Well, make the first 20 minutes engaging and involving, and don't waste your time by going through all kinds of slides with training agreements or workshop agreements, that kind of stuff. Really try to make use of that prime time of the brains of your students or your learners or your workshop participants. And so don't waste your time in those first 20 minutes, but dive into the content. And what I just did, I asked you to think about a word that has to do with facilitation. It's already priming your brain saying, hey, this is about facilitation. It's not about Evelien. It's about facilitation. Already getting your brain ready to learn, getting your brain ready to digest, and opening up your mind, to get more information in. Also, at the end, you don't want to end in a boring way. You don't want to end your workshop or your training or your Scrum event in a boring way, because at the end of the well, you saw the camel before. At the end of the cycle, your brain also has a prime time. So use that information. So use that prime time to make it a memorable experience. You don't want to end with. I don't want to end my training with a boring evaluation form. I want to celebrate. I want to have high fives. I want people to share, this is what I got out of this training, and make it a memorable moment. So start and end in a fun way. And maybe you want to revisit your learnings. Today I did a training for Scrum Masters. I asked in the very last minute, what did you learn? What did you take away? As we end in a celebrative way. And now we're going into, I only see 2 participants at the Miro, but that's okay. Primacy recency effect is what I just talked about. And so what you want to do is have a good opening activity. So where do you start with? And have a good closing activity. Where do you end with? Because, well, you want to use those 2 prime time bumps that your brain has. You remember the camel? Those 2 bumps, you want to use them. So the first one is high, opening. The second one is a little bit lower, it's closing. But you still want to use those open minds, those open brains. That sounds weird. Open brains of your participants. So for the people who are on the Miro, if you want to add a great opening or closing activity that you might have experience with, you can do that on the Miro. And for the people who are looking along, I have done this talk before, so I have collected some ideas for opening and closing activity. So I'll just give it a moment. I don't think we need the whole time box of 4 minutes, but just take a look at what's on the Miro if you are on it yourself, and add a opening or closing activity if you want. I'm just going to set the timer. Let's take 2 minutes, and I hope Serdar is adding some good ideas. No pressure at all. Die is achter, die timer. Okay, very well. For the people who have just joined, I see 16 people on LinkedIn. There is a link in the chat that you can join and where you can look along at the Miro, and maybe even, just like Serdar was doing, adding some stuff to the Miro. Because, well, we're talking about personal engagement, so it would be great if we have some engagement. If you just joined, we are in the middle of our first P, which is about primacy recency effect. Luckily for you, it's recorded, so you can look back at in the future. Look back in the future? Well. You can look back at it. Well, never mind. Okay, so Serdar, thank you for sharing your ideas how to use the primacy recency effect. We have storytelling to get attention and icebreakers such as who do you pick with you when you are at a forest with camp theme Miro board. So thank you so much for sharing that. For the people who are just joining, there are other ideas that I've collected while I was doing this talk at other conferences. So you can look them up or you can search them in Google. I'm sure you can find a description of it. Let's continue with the second P. And I was in presenting mode, but until I zoomed in. Yeah, okay. So the second P of the 5 P's of personal engagement is paying attention. So you want your participants to pay attention, but how do you do that? Well, if something is routine or repetitive, then people won't pay as much attention as you want them to pay attention, as you want them to. So for instance, if you do a sprint retrospective every time and you do it with the same theme or with the same format, what will your brain say? This is repetitive. This is routine. I don't need to pay attention. And then your brain already is zoomed out or is already not paying attention, and that's not what you want. So why would you change up your sprint retrospective or sprint review format? Because you want to make use of that function of your brain that pays attention to new stuff, that pays attention to different stuff. And so you, with that knowledge, you know why you want to switch up your structures. You know why you want to switch up your facilitation of an event or of a workshop or of a training. Another way that another thing that your brain pays attention to is if it has meaning to you. So if it is important for you, if it has a purpose for you, then your brain say, hey, this is interesting for me. I can get something out of it. Then your brain pays attention to. And your brain also pays attention to emotion. So if you can sparkle an emotion, that can be either a fun or a positive emotion, but also a negative emotion. But that's not what we want. So we want positive emotions, of course. And how can you sparkle those emotions? By, for instance, storytelling, like Serdar said, take them along in your story. Maybe tell an anecdote or a joke. So it's people will pay attention to that more or even or better. So a few examples already told that the storytelling, that's important. Make it different. Give it meaning. Start with a meaningful question. Why are you here, or what do you want to get out of it? Is a great opening question, and it connects the participants to what they can get out of it or what they want to get out of it. If you're just in a meeting or in a session and you just say, I'm just here because my manager told me to be here, well, that's probably not a real good connection to a purpose or a meaning. See if you can dig into what do you want to get out of it. So that could be a good triggering question for to get your people to pay attention. And again, for the people who are joining on LinkedIn or on YouTube, there is a Miro link that you can join so you can participate in the activities that we do. We are now going into how can you have your team members or participants pay attention more. And the question to you is, think of one of the sessions or workshops or trainings or whatever meeting you have ever attended? And what did the presenter do to keep your attention? Well, we're not using a wall. We're using the Miro. I'm going to give you 2 minutes to add something to the Miro. And again, there are some examples on the board. I'm not going to explain them, but you can look at them later and probably search them on Google. So I now have 2 people on the Miro, and I'm going to start the timer. I'm going to do 2 minutes. Here we go.
There's comments on LinkedIn. Maybe you can also acknowledge that.
Yeah.
This, 2 minutes.
Yes.
The question is on the big screen.
Ik zie het. Okay. Yeah, Serdar says you almost covered everything down there. Yeah, there are a lot of ideas and is a lot of inspiration down on the Miro. And these are examples of people that went to a session or workshop, and a lot of the comments or a lot of things that are appreciated are the things that also are on the board. Give real life examples, connect people to things that happened, anecdotes or stories. Storytelling again is very important if you want to have more participation. So thank you for adding that, and thank you for sharing. And for the people who are just joining, because I see the number is still running up, there is a Miro link that you can use. We're talking about personal engagement. And I also saw a comment by Serdar in the LinkedIn comments. An icebreaker would be a lifesaver, wouldn't it? Team members can get to know each other, for instance. Yeah, I think that is a great way to get to know each other and to connect with each other. And we'll also talk about that in a moment. Because the third P of personal engagement is participate actively. What do you want to achieve with this? Well, that everybody participates. And already, like Serdar said, microstructures like liberating structures, facilitation methods that help to engage and involve everybody. Well, liberating structures is a great example of that. That's a collection of 33 structures that you could use to make more engaging and more valuable sessions or meetings. So use them whenever you think is appropriate. What I also like, and which kind of is what we're experiencing today, is that we co-create. So I could have just done 60 minutes of me talking without involving you. But the idea is personal engagement. We want to lure you into the Miro so you can also add your comments, your thoughts. Because I can give my perspective with my single brain, but I hope that your 18 brains are have more brain capacity or are smarter than my single brain alone. So that's why I use the wisdom of the crowd, which is you in this case, to get new ideas or to co-create and in the end, hopefully have even more ideas on the Miro which you can use. So for everybody who's not on the Miro, there's a collection of activities that you could do, that you could try to to increase the personal engagement. And so what is Participate Actively about? You want to include everybody, so everybody is involved, not just the one or two team members. It's everybody of the team. It's everybody in the audience. It's everybody who's participating in the workshop. And maybe you want to rotate facilitation. That it's not just you talking, but it's also that it's not just you talking as a facilitator, but also other people talking or chipping in. In this setting, it's a little bit difficult to have you talking, but you can talk digitally by leaving things in the comments and on LinkedIn and on YouTube. So I really invite you to do that. It's a kind of talking, but not really, but it's the best that we can do in this setting. Yeah, so be engaged, be involved. I don't have to be the only one doing the talking. Well, in this case, I am. I hope you get it. Anyway, so the fourth P is participate actively. And again, on the Miro, we have a lot of ideas that you could use. Some facilitation structures. And I'm going to ask you, do you have any other ideas to engage everybody? And share your favorite way of engaging everybody. And I know 1 to 4 all is already there. It's pretty popular to engage everybody. I'm going to set the timer for 2 minutes. For people that don't know what 1 to 4 all is, it's this one. That is a liberating structure, where you first individually write something down or think about something, and then in pairs and then in groups of 4, and then you share it with all of the participants. We use it a lot. So that's an invitation to everybody. If you want to add your favorite way to engage everybody, just drop it on the Miro. I see Serdar is already typing, so thank you for that. At least one person is engaged, so good. And we have a visitor. That's awesome. Thanks. Oh, that's a good idea. Yeah. Having a lean coffee, that's perfect for engaging everybody. Thank you. And that is, the time is up. So we have added the lean coffee, and let me check out what is over here. Well, at the beginning, it may seem easy to use liberating structures, but when considering your target, making new strings may become difficult. The more you work on it, the more you become an expert, hopefully. Yeah, that's a great comment. So, and liberating structures, creating strings of liberating structures, it is something that you have to practice. It's something that you have to experience. And below on the My Row, there are more things that you could do to have everybody participating actively. So let's go to the next P. That is psychological safety. And it has been a very popular word recently, psychological safety, on LinkedIn and other resources. Psychological safety is important when you do a training or a workshop, because you want to create an environment where people feel safe to ask questions, and where they feel safe to share information, to share their thoughts, to share their comments without being looked weird at. So in a training session or a workshop, you want to create that safe space. But how do you do that? Well, one of the first things you want to do is to create connections. And so getting to know each other better. Before I would ask a question in a group of 30, I want to connect the people first to each other. And so I would ask in pairs, share what your favorite movie is, or Serdar also had a good idea. Share your favorite holiday destination, for instance, where you create that connection between 2 or between 4 people before you go into the content. And for instance, if people feel anxious, for example, during sprint review or something, and let's say your sprint didn't went that well, and people feel anxious because, well, there's important stakeholders that are joining, you might want to add some breathing or movement to that session, because what that does, moving decreases the adrenaline for people. It absorbs adrenaline. And doesn't mean that you have to go running around the room or something, but movement absorbs adrenaline. So if you know that your team members are anxious to do in a sprint review, to share maybe their failures, or to share that not everything went as well as they wanted it, maybe you want to do an exercise and say, hey, we have a flip chart here, we have a flip chart there, we have a flip chart there, or maybe a laptop there, and we're just going to write our thoughts on it, or write your best idea for the product. It takes away that adrenaline, and takes away the tension, takes away maybe the uncomfortableness of your participants. And so creating a safer environment by moving around, or having the people move around. In the end, you want an environment where it's safe to contribute and to learn. I'm looking at the chat, and Iana says, start crying first to build up the psychological safety and build the trust. Okay. So well, start crying first. That's the tip of today. Start crying first. Thank you, Iana. And then build on psychological safety, and then build trust. I've done a talk about trust too, so you can look that up too, how to build trust. But let's continue and see how you can build more psychological safety. In any event, you want to use the whole room. So what I do also during conference talks, I use the walls of the conference room. A little bit more difficult if you do it online, but still you could say, hey, write down a thought on a sticky note and walk to your own bedroom wall, put it on there. And you can incorporate movement in online sessions. You could, for instance, also say, hey, we have a constellation, we have a statement. How much do you agree with it? Well, if you don't agree, you move further back. I don't know if I can do that. You move further back. And if you do agree, you move a little bit closer to the camera. So you could also, in an online setting, add movement to your sessions. Online doesn't mean you have to be sitting all the time. Online also means that you can have movement in your sessions. What I also always say to my participants, especially in training, is that they have the right to pass. If you just want to listen and maybe observe for a little while, that's okay. I'm not going to force you to speak. I'm not going to force you to participate, because that will be, or for some people, that might be putting pressure on them. And you don't want that. You want everybody to feel safe. And if they don't want to contribute, they can just say, I'll pass. And that's okay. And sometimes people ask me, but what if someone passes the whole time? Well, nobody does that. Or at least I have not experienced that yet, that someone passes all the time. Maybe 1 or 2 times. But after that, they will come at ease and see it's a nice, safe environment, and they will participate. So give the people the right to pass. Very important in creating psychological safety. Also, asking a question to a maybe introvert person in a group of 20 or a group of 30 or whatever size group might be very scary for someone. So if you first ask them to write stuff down without talking, that could help them to gather their thoughts and think about what they are going to say if they have to say something. So silent writing, just have people write stuff down, could also give more introvert people the chance to get their thoughts noted down, or to get their thoughts heard. Maybe if you do an exercise afterwards, sharing, hey, what have you written down? I also like making connections right at the start of the training, getting to know each other better. And also, if you're doing conference talk or Scrum event, you could ask those connecting questions, like I shared before. What's your favorite movie? Or there's one on the board, I think. What is your childhood memory? Well, your candy. What's it called? Your memory of your childhood candy? I don't know. But it's on the board. You can find it. Kindred spirit means, hey, find a person who has the same birthplace as you, or find a person who has the same eye color as you. You already make a connection, and then you start chatting with each other. So that's also a nice one to make connections. So again, I'm going to the board. And we're looking at psychological safety. So for anyone who's joining now, we are on the Miro. We are. You can add stuff there. The link is in the chat and in the comments. And I'm going to ask you to read through the comments at the lower end of the Miro. And I'm going to ask you if you have any additions. And if you want, you can draw or add an emoji on the one that you think, oh, that's a good idea. So, have to get out of the pen mode. And I'm going to start the timer 2 minutes. So if you want to get the most out of the session, join us on the Miro. Blue play, yes, got it. Very well. So we've added a few things on the Miro. So thank you for that. We have retrospective. Start with the Las Vegas rule. Well, what is the Las Vegas rule? It means whatever happens in this session will not get out of the session. Unless you record it and put it on YouTube and on LinkedIn, of course. But the Las Vegas rule is whatever happens here stays here. Unless you want to publish it, of course. So thank you for that. Create triangles of commonalities. So just like I said, find someone who has the same eye color, or find someone who has the same birthplace, or find someone who has traveled the same amount of time that you did to this workshop or to this training. So that could be, could also be a group of 3. So I like those ideas. Thank you for sharing. And while we are getting into the last P of personal engagement, we have play. So how can you keep your participants engaged? Personal engagement. Add some play to it. Play has good results. No, not good results. Has a good impact on your participants. And research has been done on organizations where they do a lot of like business play or professional play or serious play, whatever you want to call it. And it shows that if you add that to your organization, to your team, to your sessions, to your meetings, to your workshop, it shows that people are less fatigued, they experience less boredom, and that the results are better because people are getting more creative. And then you ask, okay, but how do I do that in a training? Or how do I do that in my sprint review or sprint retrospective? Well, there are many ways that you could do it. One of the things is using all your senses, make a game or make a puzzle and add kinesthetics. So things that you can touch, that will really help to engage the people more. And you can just, well, like I said, create a puzzle, create a mix and match. That's easier to do in a training than in a Scrum event. But you can also imagine that if you think about it creatively, that you could do it in a sprint review, or you could do something like that in a sprint retrospective. Be aware of your audience, though. Maybe if you are in a conference talk where you have 300 people sitting in front of you, it might be a little bit more difficult to play a game. But be aware of the effect of play and playfulness, and try if you can edit maybe just a small thing into your facilitation endeavors. And maybe you want to, I really like to play bingo in my training. So I ask people to create a bingo card on the spot, and they have to really pay attention. Well, if I say a word, they can cross out that word, and well, that helps them to keep paying attention to when I say those words. So it's really fun. And of course, you have prizes, and people want to have a prize, so they are really getting involved. Think about small things. You don't have to play the next, I don't know, 300 people Monopoly game or something. You can make just a small game where you share the concepts of what you're trying to convey to your participants. So that could be an enhancement of your facilitation. So getting into the last P, we have I've added some links where play in business, serious gamers, power of play. Yeah, here's my favorite, playing bingo, solve a puzzle. We already had Rory's story cubes, and maybe you have an idea of how you use play in your Scrum events or in your sprint retrospectives. I'm going to set the timer just for 1 minute. Let's see if we can get some reactions on the Miro. Well, you can think of a little card game, for instance, or what we do in training in Agile Foundation. We create cards for Agile Manifesto. People have to mix and match what goes with what are the values that belong together, for instance. And Spage? I don't know what Spage is. Were you done typing, Sarah? Spaghetti. Spaghetti is coming, I think. Yeah, Spaghetti Tower. Yeah, that's great. Just like Marshmallow Tower. And we have letter to myself at the beginning of the session, whatever the session is. So I can imagine that you at the beginning of the session write what I want to get out of it, or I don't know who wrote it, but we can look it up. Maybe we can start just looking at the comments on LinkedIn. Letter to myself. I'm going to look that up. But thank you for the inspiration. And of course, like I said, on the Miro, there's more inspiration if you want to add more play to your Scrum events or to your training. Yeah, thank you for arranging the Miro so neatly. Here we go. Okay, I'm going to continue. Oh, sorry. I was out of the... Okay. Nobody saw that. So we are getting at the end of my session, the 5 P's of personal engagement, and I hope that before this session you were maybe applying stuff, or maybe you were doing stuff to increase your facilitation skills, and I hope that now you have some reasons behind it why it is important. And of course, brain science and neuroscience is much more than I can explain in 50 minutes. But I hope it has given you some inspiration to dive further into this topic, because this is also how I got inspired. I wanted to know more about how your brain works, and I wanted to know more about how you can create those involving and engaging sessions. And so do a deep dive in the topics that we have talked about if you want to learn more. And this is just the top of the iceberg, maybe? Yeah. So let's see if there's still someone in the chat or in the comments. I'm going to ask to add a takeaway in the chat, in the comments on YouTube or LinkedIn. What is your takeaway from this session? Because we're getting at the end and I want to celebrate your learning. So I hope at least there's one learning for one person. Then my goal is achieved already. And then I'm a happy camper. So let's wait for that.
There was a question on YouTube if you have any book suggestions for facilitating the techniques.
Yeah. We have a Scrum Master playbook, which is written by me and Sjoerd Nijland. That contains a lot of plays that you can try. If you want to use liberating structures, there's a website, it's just liberatingstructures.com. There's also a book for that. There is a book, it's called Professional Facilitation Skills. It's by Patricia Kong. Also a good one. And maybe if someone has other suggestions, you can leave them in the chat. So that would be, or maybe on the Miro if you're there. So I'm just waiting if someone could share a learning. So I hope someone learned something from this session.
We have about if it's recording.
Yeah.
Recorded.
For the people just that are just joining, we're at the end of our session, but it is being recorded. So you can look it back at any moment that is comfortable for you. I would recommend also to access the Miro, because there's a lot of information on there, and it will be open for a time, for a moment, for a while, Well, there's a compliment on LinkedIn, so thank you for that. And thank you to Sis Art. So thank you for sharing that. If you want to connect with me, I am on LinkedIn. I am on Instagram. You can find me on Scrum Boosters. Um, Agile with Teas. And if you want to give some feedback on how to improve, that would be great, because we're always looking to do things better. So if you have suggestions for maybe a next time, or maybe for Berlin Scrum at Scale conference in October, that would be highly appreciated. You can scan the QR code, leave your feedback, and I'm happy to take that into account. And if you want to connect with me on LinkedIn or follow me, just look for me. I'm present online. So thank you all for joining, and well, I hope to see you in October.
Thanks a lot, Evelyn. I have, by the way, my takeaways, a lot of takeaways. I have taken a lot of notes. For example, time of play, a striking word, wisdom of a crowd. And in terms of psychological safety, I am now reading Fearless Organization, a great book. I highly recommend.
Yeah, that's great. And leave that also in the comments. I also saw the reference to Amy Edmondson, which was also in the comments. That's also a great read on psychological safety. So if you're just joining, read through the comments, look back to recording, check out the Miro, and well, I hope you gain some knowledge out of that. So thank you, Mustafa. Thank you for hosting this. I also a compliment to the Sys Art crew in the comments. So yeah, I think we are done.
Thanks a lot. Bye bye then.
Thank you. Bye bye.